No matter what, we come together for the good of our constituents, and I'm proud and honored to lead the People's House of the New York State Legislature.
The health and protection of the human beings that live in our districts is our responsibility.
Frederick Douglass's words for us today, I quote, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress."
If you want equity to happen, then this is where it happens.
All of us have a responsibility to the greater good.
The House will come to order.
Hello and welcome to Assembly Update. I am Audrey Pitcher. I'm here today with Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz to speak with us about the budget and some other various issues. Assemblyman, thank you very much for joining us today.
I'm really happy to be here.
Excellent.
Another great day in Albany.
Absolutely. Now, you've recently been working for some really pivotal human trafficking legislation. Can you talk a bit about what that does?
Yes. I mean, just a little background. It was a number of years ago that I introduced the first legislation in New York on human trafficking, and it took a few years to get it done, believe it or not. And the law that we passed and was signed by the then governor was the strongest law in the nation that many other states used as a model to pass laws in their states. And before that time, there was nothing in the law that referred to human trafficking. It was not even defined in the law. So now we are here many years later. A number of tweaks have been made to the law. We've made many improvements over the years. But what I'm trying to do this year, along with my colleague in the state Senate, Cordell Clear, is to pass legislation that would eliminate the criminal statute of limitation for human trafficking, and would also open up a window similar to what we've done with the Child Victims Act and the Adult Survivors Act to allow survivors of human trafficking to sue the traffickers. And we held a press conference last week with Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, the state senator, myself, plus advocates from various organizations and human trafficking survivors. This bill, I believe, is very important because we want people to get justice. And I hope we can pass it this year. I don't know, I can't imagine why we wouldn't. The only people I can think of who would oppose this bill are the traffickers. So, but we do have some work to do, and that's one of the top priorities of mine in this legislative session.
Definitely, yes. Now, you also gave a recent address to Public School 207. Could you talk a bit about what that was about?
Yes, PS 207 is just, excuse me, it's just a few blocks from my office, and we went over there to provide them with some funding, capital funding. So I presented with them one of those giant checks. Of course, I warned them they can't go to the bank with that particular check. So I presented it to the principal. Well, we had the whole 5th grade class there, and I spoke to them for a little while. And the purpose of this particular funding is to upgrade their gym so that they could actually have like a real gym where the kids can get their exercise and play and, you know, all the other stuff they do in the gym. But the schools need a lot of funding. They need their operating expenses, of course, every year. And we can talk about that when we talk about the budget, but also capital funding. And PS 207 is in an old building that was formerly part of St. John's Church School. And it's a very nice building, but old. And so this funding will hopefully help them you know, move that project along. I've gotten them significant funding in advance. It's a great school, they have a great principal, great staff, great kids.
Excellent. Now, schools were one of the things that were hit quite hard during the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking of which, we've had some issues with anti-vaccine protesters who will apparently be appearing at the Capitol today.
Right. Well, yes, they come protesting legislation, most of which is not even really on the agenda for this year, but I guess they need something to protest, perhaps. The biggest protest that they had was over my legislation, which we passed, I guess it was in 2019, I believe, which eliminated non-medical exemption for school vaccine requirements for kids. Prior to that, huge numbers of kids weren't getting vaccinated against measles and other terrible diseases. And the reason they were able to be exempt is because their parents were saying that they demanded a religious exemption. Now, I'm not going to comment on what people's beliefs are. I don't know what goes on in people's heads, obviously. But we do know that if you don't have a certain percentage of kids vaccinated against these diseases, and that number, that percentage is somewhere between, I guess, 90 and 95%, then we won't achieve the immunity that protects other kids who can't get vaccinated. And there are kids who can't get vaccinated for one reason or another, medical reasons. Maybe they're fighting cancer, for example. So it's very important that every kid get the vaccines in them. When I was a kid, we didn't have so many vaccines. I had all the, the childhood disease. I had measles, rubella, whatever the other ones are. I had them all. And that's, I survived it, but some people didn't. I know people who lost siblings. I know people who lost hearing. And when I had, I don't remember having the measles because I was very, very young. I remember having chicken pox. I remember having rubella. Not pleasant, but and for most people, it's just not a huge problem. But you don't want people spreading it from one to the other because for some people, it is a problem. People die. Kids die from measles. Most kids don't. A very tiny percentage do, however. And so these vaccines save lives. I have no doubt whatsoever that there are some people alive today that might not have been but for this legislation, because the percentage of kids who now get vaccinated is greater than what it used to be. And California passed a similar law a year or so before we did, and it makes a difference. And my goal is to protect lives. I'm not ideological about it. I just go where the medicine and the experts take us. That's what I believe. I believe in science. Some people do get their information from, YouTube videos and Twitter and stuff like that. Not me. Do I pretend to be the foremost expert? Absolutely not. But I do know that this is really very important for kids. So there are people coming up to Albany today, and they have their right to protest. I hope they don't disrupt anything going on today, including the hearing on the health budget. But they do have a right to protest, and good for them. If this is how they want to spend their time, that's fine. The bills that they're protesting, I don't think necessarily are at the front of agendas this year. We got the big bill done. We got the medical exemption that only allowed for medical exemptions. We got that passed and enacted into law, and it's not changing. People can protest that, they can demand that it be repealed. Not happening. Not happening. So I look forward to seeing people express their points of view, and just as I will express my point of view.
Absolutely. Now, it's clear that schools and improving the safety and quality of our schools is a huge issue and a huge priority for you. On that topic, could you talk a little bit about what the governor has earmarked for school and the education budget this year?
The governor is providing for an increase, but it's much more modest than in the past couple of years. And we have to keep in mind, during the pandemic, a lot of money flowed into the state from the federal government that's no longer available. But just the same, I think it's our job to fight for as much as possible for our public schools, and that's something I'm going to do this year during the budget process, and I hope we can make some progress. I know our schools need a lot of help. Last year, we did have a good increase, and certainly the year before as well. But we always have more work to do on that. And for the next 2 months, this is what we're going to be doing.
Do you have any specific priorities that you're especially hoping for this education budget?
I want as much foundation aid as possible added to the budget. I want to make sure that money comes down that goes into the schools in my district and in every other district in the city of New York. I know that some people say, well, they already get so much money, we're not getting our money's worth. Well, I think we always have more work to do. I believe test scores have gone up in the past year, and I do believe in testing. But I do think that the best way to help kids is not to, starve the budget of the schools. And because so many additional kids, there was the number of kids in the school system in the past couple of years actually went down. Some people left during the pandemic, but now those numbers are going up. There are a significant number of kids who are recent arrivals from other countries, and we have to address that. I mean, these are children who went through, a terrible trip here, basically, and most of them do not speak English, and so we have a lot of work to do. I mean, these are kids. We want to help them and do the right thing by them. So it doesn't happen for free.
Definitely. And another priority of yours this session has been retail theft.
I'm happy to say that the governor is trying to address this issue in her budget. I have some legislation on the issue. The fact is, small businesses and chain drugstores, for example, they have been slammed hard by retail theft. Sometimes it's an individual, but sometimes it's actually highly organized, almost like a big criminal enterprise, and so we have to deal with it as such. There are stores that have closed because of the amount of retail theft that's taken place, and that's not good for our community. The small businesses are really the backbone of our community, and so we have to keep fighting for them. We have to address the issue of retail theft. I know some people, would say, well, we don't want to, put more people in jail. Well, I don't like to see people go to jail, but sometimes it's appropriate, or other measures that may have to be taken. We got to deal with a serious issue that's affecting our community, and it's not affecting wealthy people. It's affecting, the people who own the small businesses, who are operating on very small margins. It's affecting the stability of our community. If we lose these businesses, that's really, really bad. A few blocks from my office recently, a Rite Aid just closed, and I think it was partially because of this situation. So we have work to do. We have to find ways to address it. I think we got to be a little tougher. I'm not some law and order fanatic, but we got to really deal with the situation where innocent people are being hurt, certainly financially, and it's an issue which we've gotten a lot of complaints about, and I hope that this year we can do something, and do something that's real, not some window dressing, but something that's really going to impact the situation.
Definitely. And in our last few moments, could you talk about the budget toll, the bridge rebate reminder?
Just want to remind people, I've spoken about it before, the Henry Hudson Bridge toll rebate, which is something I worked really hard to make happen, which provides for Bronx residents who have a car registered in the Bronx, who have Easy Pass and have money in the Easy Pass account, a 100% rebate. So if you go over the bridge, you have a passenger car, you will get an instant rebate on the toll if you're in the Bronx. If you're not in the Bronx, oh well.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us again. It's been lovely to have you, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Okay, thank you.